Shirley Jackson stood frozen in her small kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the stillness. Her hands trembled as she stared at the pristine white envelope lying in the center of the table, its edges catching the soft glow of the afternoon light. She didn't need to reread the sender's name. It was already etched into her mind. Billy Martin. 5 years had passed since that night at the glittering charity gala in New York, the night that had altered the course of her life forever. Billy Martin, the untouchable white billionaire, whose deep blue eyes had locked onto hers across a sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos, made the room fade until there was nothing but them. For a few hours, she had let herself believe in something impossible, that a man from his world could truly see her. And then morning had come. He had become a stranger before the sun rose, his parting words, vague and meaningless. She had returned to her modest apartment carrying more than a memory. Weeks later, she learned she was pregnant not with one child, but with 3. Naomi, Lucas, Caleb. Children. Billy Martin had no idea existed. Shirley had tried to tell him. She called his office repeatedly, only to be met with the icy voice of his assistant. The woman's laugh, dripping with contempt, still echoed in her memory. Do you think Mr. Martin would waste his time on a gold digger? The calls had stopped. The door to his world had slammed shut. 5 years later, here it was again, that door reopening without warning. The envelope bore the elegant seal of Martin Enterprises. Inside, along with the letter, was a cashier's check for $5,000 to cover travel expenses. The message was brief, businesslike, but impossible to ignore. Please appear at Martin Enterprises headquarters Monday 10:00 a.m. Her heart pounded in her chest as questions tore through her mind. Why now? How had he found her? Did he know about Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb? And if he did he plan to take them from her? From the living room came the sound of her children's laughter. Naomi's clear, commanding voice led her younger brothers in a game of building an elaborate castle from pillows and blankets. Lucas, quiet and thoughtful, focused on fitting each block perfectly into place. Caleb, her whirlwind of mischief, had abandoned construction entirely and attempted to scale the couch's back. Caleb, get down! Shirley called, her voice tinged with panic. She crossed the room, lifting him into her arms, feeling the solid weight of him, the life she had built in defiance of all odds. She returned to the kitchen, the envelope still there, like a challenge. 5 years ago, she had been just another server in a simple black dress, trying to blend into a room full of power and privilege. That night, Billy's gaze had made her feel like the only woman in the world. But the moment she discovered she was pregnant, reality had crushed the dream. She had given up on him and the illusion that their worlds could ever meet again. And yet here it was, his world reaching for hers. Her gaze drifted to the children in the next room, Naomi, with her serious eyes, Lucas, with his gentle patience, Caleb, with his boundless energy. All 3 bore the same piercing blue eyes as Billy Martin. The resemblance was undeniable, like a truth she had kept hidden, but could no longer ignore. Shirley inhaled deeply, her resolve hardening. She would not be intimidated by whatever Billy wanted, whatever game or reason lay behind this sudden summons. She would not let anyone, not even him, separate her from her children. Because this wasn't just her story anymore, it was theirs. And if she were walking back into Billy Martin's world, she would walk in as more than the woman he had once known. She would walk in as a mother ready to fight for her family. What would you do if the man who changed your life and left you behind suddenly called you back into his world? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to see where Shirley's journey takes her next, don't forget to like this video and follow the channel. There's so much more to come. The envelope was still on the table when night fell, its white surface now shadowed in the soft amber light of the lamp. Shirley hadn't moved at all evening. Every time she passed through the kitchen, her eyes caught on it, as if it were a living thing watching her. After the children had fallen asleep, the apartment felt too quiet, the kind of silence that made her thoughts loud and heavy. She paced the small living room, brushing her fingers against the worn fabric of the sofa, the faint sound of Naomi's breathing drifting from the bedroom. Her phone lay on the coffee table. She stared at it for a long moment before finally picking it up. The number she dialed was one she knew by heart, Tanya. Her voice was low, almost uncertain. Conversely, her oldest friend's voice came warm but cautious. "Cheryl, it's late. What's going on?" "He found me." Shirley said the words escaping before she could soften them. "Billy Martin. He sent me a letter. And a check. Wants me in New York on Monday." A pause stretched between them. She could almost picture Tanya on the other side, sitting up straighter, frowning in disbelief. "Billy Martin." Tanya repeated slower this time. "The father of your kids. After 5 years. Yes," Shirley murmured, leaning against the wall, her free hand curling into her sweater. "And I don't know why. I don't know if he's found out about them, or if he's going to try to take them from me." Tanya's tone turned firm. "You can't keep hiding forever, Cheryl. You tried to reach him back then, but his people slammed the door in your face. Now that he's reaching out, you need to look him in the eye and hear the truth for your sake and the kids." Shirley closed her eyes. Tanya's words were weighted because they were the truth, but the sting of the past was still raw. She could hear even now the cutting voice of the woman who'd answered Billy's office phone all those years ago. "Don't waste our time." The humiliation had burned like acid, and the memory still lingered. She crossed the room and pulled an old shoebox from the bottom shelf of the bookcase. Inside lay the only photograph she had kept from that night at the gala, she and Billy side by side in the ballroom. His eyes in the picture seemed lit from within, focused entirely on her. She remembered how he had leaned in to ask about her life, as if her words mattered in that glittering world. Did he remember her face? Or was she just another nameless memory blurred by time and champagne? Her thumb brushed over the edge of the photo. She thought about Naomi's curiosity, Lucas's quiet watchfulness, Caleb's wild laughter. They had grown up without knowing the truth about their father, not because she wanted to hide it, but because she'd believed there was no place for them in his life. The letter had changed that. Shirley set the photo back in the box and pushed it away. She was no longer the young woman who had left that penthouse in the gray light of morning with her heart in pieces. She had survived 5 years of scraped-together rent, 2 jobs, and nights at the kitchen table, helping Naomi practice her spelling while rocking a teething Caleb in her lap. She had built a family out of love, not luxury. If Billy Martin wanted to see her now, he would see her as she was not a passing encounter from a glittering night, but a mother who would fight to the last breath for her children. The next morning, Shirley woke early. The decision once made felt like a stone lifted from her chest. She booked 4 plane tickets to New York. The $5,000 check lay on the counter, untouched for now. It wasn't his money that would get her there. It was her own will. In the quiet moments before the children woke, she packed their clothes into neat piles. Naomi's favorite purple sweater, Lucas's worn sketchbook, Caleb's stuffed lion with the fraying mane. As she zipped the suitcase closed, a strange calm settled over her. She didn't know what awaited her in New York. Answers, perhaps. More questions, almost certainly. But one thing was sure, she would be ready whatever Billy Martin wanted from her. And this time, she wouldn't walk into his world as a stranger. She would walk in as the mother of his children, standing on her ground. The journey to New York began before sunrise, when the small Pennsylvania town was still wrapped in mist. Shirley stood in the driveway outside their modest apartment, adjusting Naomi's hood, checking that Lucas's sketchbook was tucked safely into his backpack, and that Caleb's stuffed lion peeked from the top of his small suitcase. It was their first time flying, and Shirley's first time in years. The weight of the moment pressed against her ribs. The four boarded the shuttle to the airport, their suitcases rattling across the uneven pavement. Naomi, always alert, took in every detail, her serious gaze darting from one passing car to the next. Lucas stayed close to Shirley's side, holding her hand quietly while Caleb bounced in his seat, his energy undimmed by the early hour. At the airport, strangers' eyes followed them. A black woman with 3 mixed-race children, each with striking blue eyes that seemed to catch the light. Some looked with idle curiosity, others with something sharper. Shirley felt Naomi's fingers tighten in hers. "Mom, why are people looking at us?" Naomi's voice was soft, but laced with that same perceptive edge she had carried since she was little. Shirley smiled gently. "They're just curious, sweetheart. Don't worry about it." The flight was a blur of takeoff jitters, Caleb pressing his face to the window to watch the clouds, and Lucas quietly sketching the aeroplane's wing in his notebook. Shirley tried to focus on the rhythm of the engines, but her mind kept drifting to Monday's meeting, to the moment she would walk into Billy Martin's world again. When the plane descended, the skyline rose to meet them, glass and steel slicing into the winter light. Manhattan, a city she had once glimpsed from the edges of luxury, carrying trays of champagne, through rooms filled with people who spoke the language of money as if it were their native tongue. Now, she was returning with the 3 pieces of her heart he had never met. At JFK, the crowd surged around them, the clamor of rolling suitcases, announcements over loudspeakers, and hurried footsteps merging into one endless rush. Shirley felt a middle-aged man's gaze linger on her longer than it should have, his eyes moving from her face to the children's blue eyes. She instinctively pulled them closer, her palm firm on Lucas's shoulder. The black town car, sent by Martin Enterprises, was waiting at the curb, the driver stepping forward with professional precision. The children's eyes widened as they climbed in, their voices full of awe. "Mom, look at the buildings," Caleb pointed at a glittering tower as the city blurred past the windows. "They're taller than the ones in the movies," Naomi added, her voice tinged with wonder. Lucas didn't look up from his sketchbook, but his pencil moved faster now, the lines of skyscrapers taking shape beneath his hand. Shirley answered their questions softly, careful not to reveal too much. She had told them only that they were here to meet someone important. She hadn't yet found the words to explain who Billy was or what he might mean to them. When they reached the hotel, it felt like stepping into another world. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and gold, the air perfumed with something expensive and faintly floral. Their suite overlooked the Manhattan skyline, the windows stretching from floor to ceiling, offering a view of a city that seemed to pulse with its heartbeat. Naomi explored every drawer and cupboard. Lucas settled quietly on the sofa with his book, and Caleb raced straight to the bed and began jumping. "Tomorrow, sweetheart," Shirley said when he asked about the swimming pool. "Tonight, we rest." As the children settled in for the night, Shirley stood by the window, her reflection layered over the glittering lights below. Somewhere out there, just a few miles away, Billy Martin was living his life, the life that had once brushed against hers for one unforgettable night. Did he remember how he looked at her as if the room had disappeared? Or had she been just a fleeting moment in a world filled with fleeting moments? She pressed her fingertips to the glass, gazing at the city's endless glow. Tomorrow, she would walk into his world again. But this time, she wasn't coming alone. Morning broke over Manhattan in a wash of gold and steel. Shirley watched the city stir from the suite's tall windows, her coffee cooling untouched in her hands. Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb were still in their pajamas, chattering over breakfast, but her mind was already at the looming glass tower that bore Billy Martin's name. When they arrived at Martin Enterprises, the winter sun had climbed high enough to turn the skyscraper into a mirror of blinding silver. The building rose so far above the street that Naomi tilted her head back until her braid brushed her collar. "Mom, is this where the important person works?" She asked, her tone bright with curiosity, but edged with something more. A child's need to understand why her mother's hand held hers so tightly. "Yes, sweetheart," Shirley replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Inside the lobby gleamed with polished marble floors and art that seemed too expensive to touch. The receptionist's eyes flicked to the three children lingering on their identical blue eyes before her professional smile returned. "I'm Shirley Jackson," she said, her voice firm. "I have a 10 o'clock appointment with Mr. Martin." The woman checked her screen, nodded, and gestured toward a private elevator. The ride to the top floor was silent, except for the faint hum of the cables. Shirley could feel the children's eyes moving over every surface, the mirrored walls, the buttons lined with brass, as if trying to piece together a puzzle they didn't yet know they were part of. A tall, impeccably dressed woman stepped forward when the doors slid open. "Mr. Martin is finishing a call," she said with a practiced smile. "Please have a seat." The waiting area smelled faintly of leather and citrus. Shirley guided the children to a long sofa, willing her hands to stop trembling. But before she could gather her thoughts, movement in the hallway caught her eye. Karen, the same assistant who had answered the phone 5 years ago, had laughed and called her a gold digger before hanging up. Her eyes swept from Shirley to the children and back again, confusion flashing across her face before she turned abruptly away. The sharpness of that old humiliation stabbed through Shirley, hot and sudden. She wanted to speak, to demand Karen look her in the eye now, but the soft click of a door opening cut through the air. Billy Martin stepped into the room. Time slowed. He looked almost exactly as she remembered, yet changed. The years had etched fine lines at the corners of his eyes. Silver touched his blonde hair, but the depth of his gaze was the same. That blue so vivid, it seemed to catch the light and hold it locked on her, then shifted to the three small faces on the sofa. Shirley rose to her feet, her pulse a steady roar in her ears. "Billy," she said, her voice level, though her heart felt like it might shatter through her chest. "Please, meet our children, Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb." The words hung in the air, heavier than the silence that followed. Billy's face went pale, his eyes moving from one child to the next, lingering on the unmistakable reflection of his own eyes, staring back at him. "Our children." His voice caught unsteady, as if he were trying to shape a reality too big to grasp. Ever fearless, Naomi slid off the sofa and stood before him. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone curious but firm. Billy dropped to one knee, but his gaze remained fixed on Shirley, questions burning there. "Why didn't you tell me?" Shirley's answer came without hesitation. "I tried dozens of times. But your people..." Her glance flicked toward the hall where Karen had disappeared. "Made sure I never reached you." Billy's jaw tightened, and for a moment his expression fractured, a flash of hurt, disbelief, and something almost like guilt. He looked at the children again, his voice low. "I didn't know. I swear, Shirley, I didn't know." Before she could answer, Caleb hopped down from the sofa, tugged at Billy's sleeve, and said with a small, delighted laugh, "You have eyes like us." Billy's face softened, as if that simple truth had broken through the shock. But even as he smiled faintly at Caleb, his gaze returned to Shirley, heavy with 100 unspoken things. "We need to talk," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Just the two of us." Shirley nodded, but inside, the air felt charged like a storm about to break. Billy's office was built to impress floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Manhattan skyline. Sleek black shelves lined with awards photographs and books, arranged with a precision that spoke of control. Yet for all its polish, the air felt heavier now, as if something unspoken had already begun to shift its weight onto them. Patricia, his current assistant, appeared at the door smiling as she coaxed Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb toward the company break room. "There are cookies and games in there," she told them, her voice light. Naomi glanced up at Shirley for confirmation before following Lucas trailing behind with his sketchbook, Caleb bounding forward at the promise of sugar. When the door closed and they were alone, Billy leaned back against the edge of his desk, studying her, as if afraid she might vanish if he blinked. "Shirley, I need you to believe me. I didn't send that letter. I didn't even know you were in the city until I saw you enter the lobby." Shirley's brows drew together. "If it wasn't you, then who?" Before he could answer, the door swung open. A man stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, with the same blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and unmistakable features as Billy. But there were differences. A faint scar above his right eyebrow, his hair slightly longer, his stance less guarded. "I sent the letter," the man said, his voice deep, steady. Shirley blinked, her breath catching. "You're Nathan finished for her. Billy's twin brother." Her gaze darted between them, her mind struggling to reconcile the twin image before her. Billy's expression hardened instantly. "Nathan, what the hell have you done?" Nathan raised a hand in a gesture that was both placating and unapologetic. "Just hear me out. I did it for you. I didn't ask for your help." Billy shot back, his voice edged with something more than anger, the tightness of a man whose private life had just been thrown open. Shirley's voice cut between them. "Why? Why bring me here like this?" Nathan turned to her, his tone gentling. "Because Billy doesn't have time to waste. He's sick, Ms. Jackson, with kidney failure. I've watched him get weaker every month. I've been tested, so have our parents. None of us is a match. I hired a private investigator to look for relatives who might help. When I found you and the children, the timing made sense. I thought they might be his. I thought you might be able to help." The words landed like a stone in Shirley's chest. She took a step back, her voice tightening. "You investigated me? My children, without even asking." "I didn't mean disrespect," Nathan said, his eyes steady. "I was trying to save my brother's life. But I also thought," his glance flickered toward Billy, "he deserved to know the truth about the children." Billy pushed away from the desk, closing the space between them. His tone clipped. "You had no right, Nathan. This isn't just about me. This is Shirley's life. These are her kids." Her heart pounded as she looked from one man to the other, mirror images bound by blood, both of them staring back at her with different versions of urgency. "I came here for my children," she said finally, her voice low but unyielding. "Not to be used. Not to be part of some plan I wasn't told about. If you want to be in their lives, Billy, you'll have to prove you're worthy of it." The door to the break room burst open before either man could reply. Caleb came running in with a cookie and crumbs at the corners of his mouth. "Mom, I found the treasure," he announced, proudly oblivious to the charged air. Naomi and Lucas followed, their curious eyes darting from Billy to Nathan. "Who's he?" Naomi asked, tilting her head toward Nathan. Shirley steadied her voice. "This is Uncle Nathan." Billy crouched down to their level, a faint smile touching his lips, despite the storm still brewing. "We'll talk more soon. But for now, your mom and I need a little more time." Naomi nodded, though her gaze lingered on him, as if searching for something she hadn't yet named. When the children returned to the break room, silence closed in again. Billy's eyes met Shirley's, an unspoken battle in them. The need to explain, to bridge the gap Nathan had opened, weighed against the fact that nothing between them could be simple now. And somewhere deep inside, Shirley knew the letter had been only the first crack in a wall that was about to come tumbling down. The air in the park was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine from the rows of evergreens lining the pathways. Winter sunlight spilled over the grass, warming patches where the frost had not yet melted. Shirley stood at a distance, hands tucked into her coat pockets, watching as Billy knelt beside Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb for the first time outside the confines of his glass and steel world. It had been his suggestion. Let's go somewhere quieter, somewhere we can breathe. Naomi, ever the leader, had taken his hand, without hesitation launching into a detailed explanation of the treasure map she had drawn that morning in the hotel room. Her voice rose and fell like music, every word laced with certainty, as if she had been waiting her whole life for an audience who would hang on every detail. Caleb ran ahead, his small boots scattering leaves as he darted between trees, shouting over his shoulder for Billy to catch up if you could. To Shirley's surprise, Billy took off after him, his long stride closing the distance in seconds before scooping the boy into the air. Caleb's laughter rang through the park, bright and unguarded. Lucas, quieter than his siblings, walked beside Shirley for a while, sketchbook tucked under his arm. But when Billy slowed to match his pace, Lucas offered the book without a word. Inside, a half-finished drawing of an aeroplane stretched across the page, the lines careful and sure. "You drew this?" Billy asked, his voice warm, but tinged with awe. Lucas gave a slight nod, his gaze fixed on the ground. "It's good." "Good," Billy said, crouching slightly so they were eye level. "Do you like aeroplanes?" Another nod, a pause. Then so softly, Shirley almost missed it. "I want to build them someday." Billy's smile deepened. "You know, I might be able to help with that." Something in Lucas's posture shifted, not quite trust, but the spark of curiosity, the first thread of a bridge being woven between them. From her spot on the bench, Shirley felt an unexpected warmth stir in her chest. It was strange seeing the children with him. She had been both mother and father for 5 years, the sole anchor in their small world. Now watching Naomi lean into his side as she pointed toward the next clue on her treasure map, or Caleb grip his hand without being asked. Shirley felt the faintest tremor of possibility, but with it came caution. When Billy eventually joined her on the bench, his cheeks flushed from chasing Caleb. His eyes held a light she hadn't seen earlier that morning. "They're incredible," he said almost to himself. "You've raised them to be so full of life." "They're my whole life," she replied. His gaze lingered on her as if he wanted to say more, but wasn't sure he'd earned the right. "Shirley, I meant what I said. I want to be part of their lives, part of yours if you'll let me." She met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "If you want to be their father, Billy, you must prove it. Not just today, not just while it's easy." A beat of silence passed between them, filled with children's laughter somewhere down the path. "Then I'll prove it," he said quietly. And for the first time since she had opened that envelope in her kitchen, Shirley wondered if he might mean it. Back at the hotel that evening, she watched the children fall asleep faster than usual, exhaustion softening their faces. She stood in the doorway, listening to the steady rhythm of their breathing, her mind replaying the sight of Caleb in Billy's arms, Naomi's easy chatter beside him, Lucas's hesitant but willing trust. The images made something inside her ache, not with longing, but with the fragile hope she was trying to keep locked away. Because hope, she knew, could be as dangerous as it was beautiful. The morning after the park felt different, heavier somehow. The sunlight spilling into the hotel suite carried no warmth, and Shirley noticed that Naomi's laughter over breakfast seemed muted, as though even her daughter could sense the shift. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from Tanya. "Have you seen this? A link followed." Shirley hesitated, then tapped it. The headline bloomed across her screen in bold black letters: Billionaire Billy Martin and his secret lover. Single mom or gold digger. Below it, a grainy photograph taken at JFK showed her leading Naomi Lucas and Caleb through the crowded terminal. The caption read, "The mystery woman and her 3 blue-eyed children spotted arriving in New York." Her stomach twisted. She scrolled, reading the speculation, the sneering tone that painted her as a woman chasing wealth, as if the last 5 years of sacrifice could be reduced to a scandalous headline. The article even mentioned the $5,000 check, twisting it into proof of some imagined arrangement. From the living area, Lucas's voice drifted toward her. "Mom, are you okay?" She quickly locked the screen and turned to find him standing in the doorway, his sketchbook hugged to his chest. His brown skin, quiet eyes, and those unmistakable blue irises looked up at her with unspoken worry. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she said softly, smoothing his hair. But inside, the knot in her chest tightened. The phone rang. Billy's name appeared on the screen. "I'm sorry," he said the moment she answered. His voice was taut, threaded with frustration. "I didn't expect the media to move this fast. I've already called my PR team. We'll have the story taken down." "Billy, this isn't just about me," Shirley replied, her tone sharper than she intended. "It's about the kids. They'll grow up hearing whispers and seeing lies written about me, about us." There was a pause on his end. Then quieter. "I'll protect them. I'll protect you. That's a promise." Later that day, he suggested taking them all to his family's estate in Bedford for the weekend. "It'll be quieter there," he said, away from all this noise. Shirley agreed, though a shadow of unease lingered. Meeting his parents meant stepping into a world that had once seemed untouchable, the same world that had spat her out without a second glance. That night, as she was helping Naomi into her pajamas, her daughter's voice broke the silence. "Mom, do people hate us because we're different?" The question was like a blade to Shirley's heart. She knelt, taking Naomi's small hands in hers. "No one hates you, Naomi. Sometimes, people don't understand what's different. But that doesn't make us less. We're a family. That's what matters." Naomi searched her face for a long moment before nodding, the faintest smile breaking through. After tucking them into bed, Shirley's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tanya. The number was unfamiliar. She opened the message. "You don't belong in this world. Be careful." Her pulse quickened. She reread it as if a second look would change the words. But the letters stayed sharp, each one a quiet threat. Shirley stared at the phone, her thumb hovering over the delete button. She didn't want Naomi Lucas or Caleb to see. It didn't want their world darkened by shadows they couldn't name. She erased the message, slipped the phone into her nightstand drawer, and drew slowly. The world outside their hotel room walls was watching, judging. And now it seemed warning her to turn back. But Shirley had no intention of turning back. The drive to Bedford felt like crossing into another world. Past the wrought iron gates, the gravel road curved through manicured lawns and tall rows of trees that arched overhead like a cathedral. The estate revealed itself in pieces, a flash of a stone facade, the glint of a koi pond, the rise of a roofline against the winter sky. In the back seat, Naomi pressed her forehead to the window, eyes wide. "Is this a castle?" Shirley smoothed her navy blue dress with one hand, forcing a smile. "It's not a castle, sweetheart. It's your grandparents' home." Beside her, Billy glanced over, his voice low. "Don't worry. My mother's eager to meet you. My father, well, he'll take a little longer, but he'll come around." The front doors opened as they pulled up. Eleanor Martin was the first to appear, petite and elegant, with silver hair pinned neatly and a bright and warm smile. "Oh my goodness," she said, hurrying forward as the children stepped out. Look at these little ones. She knelt, taking all three in at once. She said Naomi, Lucas, Caleb, tasting each name like something precious. You have your father's eyes. Naomi straightened her shoulders. I'm the oldest, she declared. Lucas is next, and Caleb is the youngest, but only by 3 minutes. Caleb grinned, making Eleanor laugh. Behind her, Charles Martin emerged tall, with the same chiseled features as his sons, his presence commanding even in stillness. His handshake with Shirley was polite, but his gaze measured as if weighing her on a silent scale. Ms. Jackson, he said, his tone formal. Thank you for bringing them here. In the garden, the children scattered Naomi, tracing the hedge maze. Lucas crouched near the koi pond, with a quiet fascination. Caleb, already halfway up the old wooden slide that Billy claimed he and Nathan had once fought over. Eleanor guided Shirley to the porch, the steam from their tea curling into the cool air. I know this can't be easy, Eleanor said gently. When I married Charles, his family disapproved. I was from a working-class home. But love has a way of reshaping the rules. Shirley hesitated, surprised by the confession. You make it sound simple. Eleanor smiled, the expression tinged with memory. It wasn't, but it was worth it. Their moment was interrupted when Charles returned with Billy and the children. His voice was even, but the question landed like a stone in a still pond. Ms. Jackson, have you considered the children's financial future? A family like ours must be prepared. Shirley set her teacup down, her spine straightening. I've always provided for my kids. I work. I save. I don't take help unless it's needed. Charles's eyes lingered on her, unreadable. Billy stepped in before the silence grew heavy. Dad and Shirley have done everything to give them a good life. We're here to welcome them, not to question them. The afternoon unfolded in softer tones. Eleanor told stories of Billy and Nathan's childhood mischief. Caleb challenged his father to race across the lawn, and Lucas showed Eleanor his aeroplane sketches. But beneath it, Shirley felt the weight of Charles's watchfulness, the silent evaluation she couldn't shake. As they prepared to leave, Charles pulled her aside. His voice was quieter now. I meant no offense, but this family lives under constant public scrutiny. That tabloid article complicates things. I want to protect the children. Shirley met his gaze without flinching. So do I. Mr. Martin, with or without anyone's approval. Something shifted in his expression for a moment, perhaps a flicker of respect. Then it was gone. On the ride back to Manhattan, the children dozed in their seats, the quiet broken only by the hum of the road. Shirley's phone buzzed in her lap, another unknown number. They will never accept you. Her fingers curled tightly around the device. The estate might have been beautiful, and the welcome from Eleanor was genuine, but the message was a reminder. The day's warmth was not the whole truth. Somewhere in Billy's world, someone still wanted her gone. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and something sharper, a scent Shirley couldn't quite name. She sat in the quiet of the waiting area at Mount Sinai, her coat folded neatly in her lap, trying not to think about the blood that had been drawn an hour earlier. It wasn't fear of needles that unsettled her. It was the weight of what this test might mean. If she were a match, she could save Billy's life. If she wasn't, she didn't want to finish the thought. The call came late in the afternoon. Ms. Jackson, Dr. Patel's voice was calm, but there was a careful gentleness. You have a compatible blood type, but the genetic markers don't match. You won't be able to donate a kidney to Mr. Martin. Shirley murmured a thank you, ended the call, and sat still, her hands gripping the phone as if it might hold her together. She had told herself this was for the children, that whatever her feelings for Billy, she wanted him alive so they would not grow up without knowing their father. But the sharp twist in her chest at the news told her it was more than that. When Billy arrived at her hotel room that evening, he had a tiredness that no tailored suit could hide. I spoke to Dr. Patel, who said that as soon as the door closed. Shirley, you don't need to blame yourself. Just agreeing to be tested means more than I can say. It's not about blame, she replied, her voice quiet but steady. I wanted to help you. For the kids. For you. Something flickered in his eyes, and then he exhaled as if he'd been holding back for too long. I've been keeping something from you. Shirley's brow furrowed. What? My condition. It's worse than I've let on. I've been on dialysis for 6 months. Without a transplant, I might have only a few years left. Her breath caught anger rising before she could temper it. And you didn't think I deserved to know that. You let me walk into all of this, into your world, your family, the press, without telling me the truth. He admitted. I didn't want to scare you away. His voice rough. If I told you how bad it was, I thought you'd take the kids and disappear before I even had a chance to be part of their lives. Shirley's eyes burned not with tears, but with the sharp ache of betrayal. I've spent 5 years raising them on my own. I've worked 2 jobs, moved towns to make ends meet, and faced stares and whispers. Do you think I scare that easily? Billy stepped forward, his expression shifting from defensiveness to something more raw. I was wrong. I know that. I didn't want to lose this before it even started. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the city outside was a distant murmur through the windows. Finally, Billy said, Let me take you and the kids out tomorrow. Somewhere quiet. Let's start over, even if just for a day. Shirley hesitated, torn between the walls she'd built and the memory of Caleb's laughter in the park. Naomi's easy chatter beside him, Lucas's careful drawing in his hands. One day she said at last, But you need to understand, this isn't just about you proving you can be their father. It's about proving you can be honest with me. Billy nodded, the weight in his eyes, a mix of regret and determination. That night, long after he'd gone, Shirley stood by the window, the city lights a fractured reflection in the glass. She thought about the children asleep in the next room, and the man who had once been nothing more than a fleeting memory, now standing in the fragile space between the past they shared and the uncertain future ahead. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth stirred hope. Yes, but hope tangled with fear. Loving someone who might not have much time left was a dangerous kind of courage. The restaurant was softly lit, where shadows curled along the walls and the clink of silverware seemed almost musical. Shirley sat across from Billy, the candlelight reflecting off the crystal glasses between them. It was their first evening alone since the day she had walked into his office with the children. No interruptions, no meetings, no cameras. He looked better than he had the week before, but the faint hollows under his eyes were a quiet reminder that dialysis couldn't sustain him forever. You look like you've been carrying less weight today, she said, her tone cautious. Because I have something to carry me, he replied, his gaze never leaving hers. When the main course plates were cleared, Billy reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He didn't speak immediately, only placing a small velvet box between them. Shirley's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a diamond that saw the light in an almost alive way. Shirley Jackson, he said, his voice low but steady. I've wasted 5 years not knowing you were raising the most incredible children I've ever met. I don't want to waste another day. Will you marry me? Her heart thudded, a sharp mix of longing and fear. Billy, you're sick. If we don't find a donor, we will, he interrupted gently. And even if we didn't, I would still want every day I have left to be with you and the kids. Officially, completely. She looked at the ring, then at him, the man who had once been a memory she couldn't shake, now flesh and blood, flawed and fragile. "I want that too," she whispered. "But we take it one step at a time." His smile was slow and genuine as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. The moment was broken by the buzz of her phone on the table. She glanced at the screen, her stomach tightening. Another message from an unknown number. "The wedding won't save him." She locked the phone before Billy could see it, slipping it back into her clutch. She kept her smile in place for the rest of the evening, but the words burrowed into her thoughts like a splinter. 2 days later, Dr. Patel called. "We've found a match through an exchange program," he said. "A woman named Sarah Mitchell is willing to donate to Billy. In return, her husband will receive a compatible kidney from another donor in the network." Relief surged through her, followed quickly by suspicion. Why now? Why, after months of searching, did a solution appear so suddenly? When she told Billy, his reaction was unguarded joy. He pulled her into his arms, his voice warm against her ear. "This is our chance, Shirley. Our fresh start." She nodded, holding him tightly, but her mind drifted to the shadow still following them. The messages had shifted from judgment to something colder that seemed to know their private moments. That night, as she tucked Naomi into bed, her daughter traced the ring on Shirley's finger with curious eyes. "Does this mean we're a real family now?" Naomi asked. Shirley kissed her forehead. "We've always been a real family. But maybe now, the world will see it too." Still, when the lights were off and the apartment quiet, Shirley stared at the phone on her nightstand. The last message glowed in her mind like a warning flare. The wedding wouldn't save him, and she couldn't shake the feeling that whoever had sent it wasn't finished yet. The morning of the surgery dawned cold and pale, the hospital's white corridors humming with activity. Shirley sat beside Billy's bed in the pre-op room, her fingers laced with his, both holding tighter than they meant to. "You'll be fine," she whispered, though her voice was steadier than her heartbeat. "I will," he said, his gaze fixed on hers, "because I have something to. Athen arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee, his smile trying for ease, but faltering under the weight in the room. "Big day," he murmured, placing 1 cup in front of Shirley. "And, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. I know you haven't forgiven me for the letter, but without it." He glanced at Billy, his voice trailing off. Shirley met his eyes briefly. "For the kids, Nathan. I'm here for the kids." Still, a small part of her was curious about the lengths he had gone to, and whether he knew more than he admitted. A nurse entered, her tone brisk but gentle. "It's time for pre-surgery prep." Shirley bent over Billy, pressing her lips to his forehead. "You come back to us, Billy Martin, all of us." "I promise," he murmured. Before they wheeled him away, Billy reached for a small velvet pouch on the bedside table. "Give this to Sarah Mitchell," he said. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with an inscription, "Thank you for the gift of life." Hours later, Shirley sat in the waiting room with Eleanor, Charles, and Nathan. The air felt thick every second, stretching too long. Eleanor's hand was warm on hers, a silent reassurance. Then Charles spoke, his voice breaking the stillness. "Miss Jackson, I owe you an apology." His usually firm tone was quieter now, stripped of its formality. "I judged you before I knew you. But you're here despite the tabloids, the whispers, all of it. That says more about you than I wanted to see." Shirley looked at him, unsure how to respond. So she nodded. 4 hours after Billy had gone into surgery, Dr. Patel entered, his smile easing the tight coil in Shirley's chest. The procedure was a success. "The kidney is functioning well. He's in recovery, and you'll be able to see him soon." Relief came like a wave, nearly buckling her knees. She turned to Eleanor, who pulled her into a gentle embrace. While Billy rested, Shirley visited Sarah Mitchell in her recovery room. Sarah's face was pale, but her eyes were warm as she took Shirley's hand. "We saved each other," she said softly. "My husband gets his transplant tomorrow because of this program, and now you get more time with the man you love." Shirley pressed the necklace into Sarah's palm. "It's from Billy for everything you've given us." Later, as Shirley returned to the quiet hallway outside Billy's room, her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She didn't recognize the number, but her heart sank before opening it. "He lives, but you might not." The fluorescent light above suddenly seemed harsher, and the hum of hospital machines was louder. She closed her eyes, steadying her breath, and deleted the message. Not here. Not now. She wouldn't let that darkness touch Billy's recovery. When she finally entered his room, Billy's eyes were open, faintly glazed, but warm. "You're here," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Always," she replied, sitting at his side and threading her fingers through his. "You did it, Billy. We have a future." But as she leaned her head against his shoulder, Shirley knew the fight wasn't over. The surgery had saved his life, but the shadows still lingered, watching, waiting. The October sunlight fell in gentle golden streaks across Central Park, painting the trees in shades of amber and rust. Beneath a canopy of roses and fall leaves, Shirley stood in an ivory silk gown that traced every graceful line of her figure. Eleanor's hands moved gently through her hair, adjusting the intricate braids one last time. "You look beautiful," Eleanor said softly, her eyes glistening. "Today is yours, and Billy's day." Shirley smiled, her fingers brushing the diamond ring that had never left her hand since the night Billy proposed. 2 months had passed since his transplant. His strength had returned. His laughter was easier now, and every day since he had been a steady presence, not just for her, but for Naomi, Lucas, and Caleb. Outside, the children waited for their turn in the procession. Naomi clutched a basket of petals, already bossing her brothers into position. Lucas stood carefully with the ring box, and Caleb was doing his best to stay still, though his eyes were already tracking a butterfly in the grass. The music began, a slow, tender melody that seemed to breathe with the autumn air. Nathan appeared at Shirley's side, offering his arm. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, and they stepped forward. When she saw Billy standing beneath the arch, the world narrowed to just him. His deep blue eyes lit up as they met hers, his suit perfectly cut, but unable to outshine the joy in his face. The ceremony was heartfelt and straightforward. Their vows were spoken not just to each other, but to the children, promises of love, protection, and family. Halfway through, Caleb darted forward to hug Billy, making the guests laugh and breaking the last of Shirley's nervousness. At the reception in the Bedford Estate Gardens, the air was filled with music and the scent of fresh flowers. The children danced with their grandparents under strings of golden lights. Naomi twirled Lucas in a surprisingly elegant turn, while Caleb declared himself king of the cake table. Then a catering staff member approached Shirley, handing her a bouquet with a small card tucked inside. She froze when she recognized the handwriting. "Congratulations, but this isn't over." Before the chill could settle in her chest, Billy appeared at her side. "We caught him," he said, his voice low but certain, the man behind the messages, an old business rival. "The police arrested him this morning." The relief was immediate, but it came with the soft aftertaste of exhaustion. "So it's over?" she asked. Billy's hand found hers, his grip firm. "No one will ever touch our family again. That's a promise." Later that night, under a sky of stars, Shirley stood beside him, watching the children run across the lawn, their laughter carrying into the cool air. She thought of the long road here, the years of silence, The letter that changed everything. The stares, the threats, the fears that had clawed at her heart. "We made it," she whispered. Billy kissed her forehead. "And we'll keep making it. Together." They walked back to the dance floor, where Naomi grabbed each of their hands and pulled them into a circle with Lucas and Caleb. The five of them danced in the glow of the garden lights, laughter and music wrapping around them like the final stitch in a long mended seam. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was theirs. A promise written in love, sealed in trust, and strengthened by everything they had survived. And as the night carried on, Shirley knew one thing with absolute certainty: this was only the beginning. If you've been following Shirley and Billy's journey, tell me what moment moved you the most. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see more stories of love, resilience, and second chances, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.